This video will show you how to use the I am presence in order to completely transform your life. I'm going to share with you ways to apply it so that you're able to attract what you want and be who you prefer to be. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, we're going to be specifically talking about how to create from what is called an I am presence. Now, the power of an I am presence is it takes into accountability the present moment right now, rather than the stereotyped, conditioned way of the way we may look at the law of attraction, which is this is where I am and that's where I want to be. I will achieve that. I will do that. I will. This is taking into account not just the definition of saying I am, but this is also about the energy underneath what we are doing. And more specifically, that's what I'm really going to be talking about in this video, is how to develop that higher level consciousness in order to create from that paradigm. Because when you create from that paradigm, you create from a much more powerful place. Now, just to give this video context, I've showed this chart many times on this channel, but because I think you guys are kind of familiar with it, I'll show it again. And in it, you'll see this is from the book called Power versus Force. This is the Dr. David Hawkins, his chart on consciousness. Now, as you'll see, there are different emotional states of being and different levels of consciousness that are put on a scale from 0 to 1,000. Now, at the very bottom, you'll see the lower vibrational states of being, which you'll see as shame, guilt, fear. Eventually you see anger, then you'll go up a little bit more, you'll see willingness, and then you'll get to neutrality and love, and then peace, joy, and enlightenment towards the top. Now the idea underneath this is that in the bottom category, you'll notice some of those emotions, the lower vibrational states of being. Now in general, I'm going to break this down into 3 different categories for 3 different ways that we can manifest, 3 different mentalities, 3 different energy levels that we may create from. Now in the bottom level, we have mainly the thinking aspect. We have the thought, purely thought. Normally we're identifying with the shame, the guilt, the things that have happened in the past. Or maybe angry about something that happened in the past. Maybe we're angry about what might happen in the future, some ideas of people that did something to us, or some ideas behind that. Those are mainly involved with just the thinking aspect of things. So a lot of times we may get caught in our head. And when we're just making everything we do intellectual, we're not creating from a very powerful place. Now, as we move up the scale, you'll see more neutrality, you'll see more willingness, and in the middle of the scale, that is more so attained to doing. What are we doing? This is a different paradigm. This is a little bit of a higher level paradigm, because then we start to incorporate action into what we're doing, and that leads to us embodying more of the frequency of what we want, and us starting to become more like that which we want to manifest. So we might start taking action, we might start getting little incentives to do things, like synchronicity and opportunities might open up because we're taking that action. But what I'm talking about in this video is an I am presence, which comes from the higher level paradigm of being. I am being. You get being, doing, thinking. That is what mixes up this pyramid, and what we can begin to do is learn how to more so be than anything else. Now in this being is the I am presence. Now let me share with you some perspectives of the I am presence. I am already whole and complete. Imagine you feel that unconditional love that is towards the top of the pyramid, that's right at about 500. Unconditional love says I am already whole and complete. I am present says that in the present moment right now, everything is okay. It's the relationship that we have to the present moment that is the most important thing. You see, because in the bottom categories, we're more focused on different moments. We're more focused on getting somewhere that we currently aren't. And because of that, we create resistance in the present moment. So when we shift our level of consciousness by learning, this is the key right here, to accept the present moment for the way that it is. When we start to see through those eyes of unconditional love, when we start to see from that perspective, and we start to get a taste for it, doesn't mean we live in it 100% all of the time. But when we do, we start to shift our level of consciousness up higher, and when we do that, we create from a much more powerful place. Now, this is something that I learned when I was recently on my Costa Rica trip. Because when I was on that trip, I learned and had a taste for unconditional love. You see, I went into this experience, and I went into doing this breath work, kind of exploring different levels of consciousness, and I kind of thought that I was already feeling a majority of the time at about an 8 out of 10. I went through a spiritual awakening in 2012. I went from like a 5 or a 6 to feeling like an 8 or a 9 all of the time. I thought that that feeling was going to go away. I thought that after a couple, like maybe a month or two, it was too good to be true, and I'd go back to my old self. I never did. I then, from that point going forward, that became the norm, and eventually it kind of just became the background noise because I just became so used to that's the way I am, and I just felt so good majority of the time that I didn't need to do anything other than just be. It's almost like I just learned to meditate, and then I never needed to really drink again. I don't need caffeine. I just pretty much am able to feel good a majority of the time. Now, I thought that that 8 was an 8 out of 10. But what I did when I was learning these different levels of consciousness through doing this dynamic breath work and bringing more oxygen to my body is that I felt about a level 15 out of 10. And there was such a powerful feeling inside my heart of unconditional love that I felt during this transformational breath work that it completely changed the way that I view myself, and I started to see through the eyes of unconditional love. Now, it's something that I now have as a reference experience, but I'm not saying I'm enlightened. I'm not saying that I even feel this unconditional love all the time, but what I am saying is that I have a taste for what that is, and it made me really realize that what unconditional love really is acceptance of the present moment. Because when I had that perspective, I then looked at things that would normally give me resistance, and I saw them all as perfect, whole, and complete. And as I would do that, paradoxically enough, then things would just start to tailor to my preferences anyways. And I've used this analogy already, but after I had that experience, I realized that things just weren't making me feel resistance. I just didn't care. I thought everything was perfect in a way. And when I was on the plane ride home from Costa Rica, I was on the plane on a window seat, and somebody next to me put their hands, they fell asleep. It was an older lady. She fell asleep, mouth was wide open. She put her hand over into my personal space. And for a minute, my ego kind of got flared, and I was like, she's in my personal space. I'm going to wake her up and make her move her hand. And then I had that shift. I had that reference experience of that perspective that I could have, and I just simply accepted the moment 100% for the way that it was, and it was totally okay. It was perfect, whole, and complete. I had a little flashback to that feeling, and then I brought that feeling back into the present moment on that airplane, and it was totally okay. I didn't care whether she moved her hand or not. The paradox is that immediately from having that perspective, she moved her hand back into her space. It's like she almost woke up. But I didn't care whether she did it or not. But it's a paradox because the I am presence, the I am already whole and complete, the I am in the present moment, and the acceptance of the present moment is where you want to create from. Because the present moment is the only thing that exists. And when you align to that state of being, everything begins to change. So understand that I am presence is a state of being. This is more about how you feel. This is something that I'm really tapping into now, because before I was more in that middle stage of the doing. It's all about doing. It's all about the action, and I've been changing my work ethic, and I still have a strong work ethic, but it's coming from a much more powerful place because I accept the moment for what it is. I'm enjoying the ride, and it's not about how far can I get, how much can I do. It's more about how can I be in the present moment. And paradoxically enough, opportunities are coming to my life that are just amazing. I'm reaching out, I'm connecting with amazing people in my life. And it's like people are coming to me. And it's because I'm embodying that presence. I'm embodying that state of being. And in that state of consciousness, in that state of being, amazing things happen. So begin to create from that powerful place. And understanding, it's not just about the thinking. It's not just about the doing. It's those two combined equals the being. Be in the present moment. As you are in the present moment, you are embodying a frequency of what you want. You are realizing that you can accept the present moment. How do you relate to the present moment? Do you want it to be different than it is? Should something else be happening? Because if so, resistance comes in, that resistance will block you from what you want to create. So begin to have the perspective of acceptance of the present moment. Doesn't mean surrender, although it does mean surrender from that higher level paradigm. Surrender isn't giving up control so much as it's surrendering to a higher aspect of yourself. So it's really becoming aware of trusting the universe. It's becoming aware of trusting the higher aspect of yourself, because in a certain perspective, there's two versions of you. There is the more higher self version of you, the higher consciousness version of you, and then there's the ego version of you. And sometimes the ego version, even my ego version, will try to get in there and try to make everything happen, and that causes resistance. That's the doing aspect. Surrender, become present to the moment, allow, accept. And as you do that, it's not so much about giving up. Surrender isn't giving up. Surrender is releasing control from the ego mind and accepting the higher presence of who you are. And as you do that, you embody a state of being that is so powerful that it cuts through all the resistance and it allows opportunities that you never even thought possible. Because you see, the ego can only imagine a certain level paradigm. The ego, the ceiling to the ego, the best possible case scenario for the ego is only the floor for the higher self, for the higher mind, for that higher level of consciousness, for that unconditional love state of being. So when we understand this, we begin to tap into the I am presence. And as we tap into the I am presence, we create from a much more powerful place. We embody the frequency of who we are really meant to be. Things happen in a much more easier way, and that's because you are allowing the present moment to be, because the way that you relate to the present moment is in a much more powerful way. You're really feeling into it, you are being it, rather than doing, rather than thinking. Now the other part of this is understanding our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is running over 90% of our life. If you want to tap into the I am presence in a very powerful way, you can learn how to change your self-image and to see yourself and to be the perfect version of yourself. So what I did is I created a free MP3 meditation that you can download in the description box below. And this meditation will allow you to start to change your self-image, to understand how you can think, feel, and act, and really embody that being aspect of who you prefer to be. And if you listen to it for 21 days, it can absolutely transform your life. It's something you can download in the description box below. And I think if you do that, you'll find that you start to change in amazing ways. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, hit that little notification gear so that you see the daily videos that I do. The way that YouTube does things now is you actually have to hit that button in order to see the daily vids. But other than that, as always, I'll see you guys on the next vid. Peace, much love, namaste.